Jackson and I were two straight guys who couldn't stand the sight of each other. But we were forced to fake a romance for clout after a video of a little workplace spat went viral. The day we had to start the act, his smile was stiff and his fingertips trembled as he held a piece of cake to my mouth, forcing out the cringy line, "Here, Tim, have a taste." I ate the cake with equal stiffness, managing a twitchy, forced smile. This is so fake. Can't they show a little professionalism? They look so over it. It's like their whole life is just faking it now. Our agent chewed us out, saying our acting was shit and the audience wasn't buying it. But the next day, the comments section took a wild turn. Our total lack of chemistry had the entire internet shipping us like crazy. Don't they look just like a real couple trying to hide their relationship? Jackson's face is all red. He's so into him. Okay? This doesn't look like acting. I'm dying. I'm shipping this so hard. You better get one thing straight. There's no way I'm faking a romance with you based on that trash script. Jackson had threatened me viciously at first. Later, he'd have his arms wrapped tightly around my waist, whispering urgently in my ear, "What if we make this real? Please? I'm Tim Wilson, a Z-list nobody in the entertainment industry, and I just had the first viral moment of my career." The trigger was a can of soda. I woke up thirsty from a nap at the agency and went downstairs to get a drink from the vending machine. I just twisted the cap off and was about to take a sip when someone swaggered into my peripheral vision. It was Jackson, a new singer the agency just signed. He'd been on my case for some reason lately, constantly finding fault with everything I did. I took a step back to play it safe, cautiously watching him as he sauntered over to the machine. Jackson shot me a dirty look, tapped the screen a few times, and then his eyebrows slowly furrowed. His gaze landed on my hand. "Hey, you drink that soda yet?" he asked rudely. As someone he'd targeted several times, I could already tell what he was plotting just by the way his eyes moved. Quick as a flash, I lifted the can and downed the entire thing in one heroic gulp. "I have now," I said sincerely. "You." Anger flared on Jackson's handsome face. "Tim, are you nuts? I bought it, I drank it. What's so crazy about that?" Obviously, Jackson wasn't the type to listen to reason, especially when he was looking for a fight. He closed the distance in one long stride, slammed me against the wall, and pinned my shoulders so I couldn't move. "You just have to push my buttons, don't you?" Jackson was good-looking in a rebellious, boyish way. His eyes had a slight upward tilt at the corners, and he radiated a youthful energy that was hard to ignore. Too bad his temper was atrocious. Such a waste of a handsome face. My limited social experience offered no solutions for what to do when someone pins you against a wall, so I just stared at him. Blankly, Jackson glared back at me, all menace and fury. This little workplace confrontation should have blown over, but some idiot filmed it and uploaded it to the internet. The next day, both my name and Jackson's were trending. Clicking on the topic brought up a photo of our standoff from yesterday. But the reaction in the comments was completely different from what I'd expected. "Whoa, is it just me? Or is there something about the way they're looking at each other? Girl, you are not alone. The wall slam is so steamy. I kinda shipped this." My fingers trembled as I scrolled through the comments, breaking into a cold sweat at the bold remarks. When I saw they'd even come up with a ship name for us, J-Tim, I nearly fainted on the spot. I was summoned to our agent's office. When I pushed the door open, Jackson was already sitting at the table, looking green as he shot me a glance. Our agent, Ms. Brown, slid 2 folders across the table toward us. I picked one up, flipped it open, and immediately wanted to throw it back on the table. Jackson scanned his copy and looked up in disbelief. "What is this supposed to mean? This little incident has generated a lot of buzz for you too. You need to strike while the iron is hot and build up your fan base," Ms. Brown said with a cheerful smile. "The agency has decided to lean into this J-Tim ship. You'll both be appearing on a show together tomorrow." Jackson and I were bundled off to the set of a live-streaming reality show, each clutching a script for our fake romance, utterly bewildered. "Everything's been arranged. Just stick to the script. If you can ride this wave and get famous, you'll be set for life," Ms. Brown said, finishing her mix of threats and promises before kicking us out of the car. With the arrival of our final guests, our show can officially begin. "Everyone, please take a seat at the table so we can get to know each other." "Hi, everyone. I'm Chloe," a girl with a sweet smile said first. She was an ingenue who had recently become popular from a web series. Chloe, 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 my beautiful baby girl. OMG. Chloe is so sweet.
Ivana, kiss here.
I'm Ethan, an actor, a man said, nodding to the group. He was the biggest star among us, having won Best Actor last year, and he was my career idol. The live comments exploded. Whoa, they're not playing around. They even got Ethan. Ethan is so handsome. That gray suit is so stylish. Ethan, I love you. My eyes widened as I stared at Ethan. Even if it meant faking a romance with the obnoxious Jackson, coming on this show was suddenly worth it. Jackson's arrogance didn't diminish one bit in the new environment. Jackson, singer. Isn't that the new up-and-coming singer? Let me introduce everyone to my hidden gem, Jackson. Handsome, stylish, and his voice is amazing. Isn't he the guy from the Wall Slam video the other day? The camera turned to me. I put on my professional smile. Hi, everyone. I'm Tim. Who's this? Never heard of him. Damn, he's gorgeous. Looks like some pampered rich kid who ran away from home. OMG. My J-Tim ship is on a show together. What's there to ship? It was clearly bullying. I agree with the comment above. After the other guests introduced themselves, the director gave us our first task. Our show is all about experiencing authentic farm life. You'll start with $100, and you'll have to fend for yourselves for food, clothing, and shelter. Now, let's play a game to decide who gets which room. I remembered the script. Jackson and I were supposed to subtly lose this competition to make the A-lister Ethan look good, then gaze at each other affectionately as we gave up the better rooms to share a simple double room. What a disgusting plot. Who the hell came up with this? As expected, Jackson and I were drawn as a team. My left leg was tied to his right for a three-legged race over a series of obstacles. The first team to grab the flag at the finish line would get first pick of the rooms. Let me tell you right now, there's no way I'm staying in that crappy double room. We have to get first place. Jackson whispered in my ear, his eyes glinting. But the script, stop. Forget that stupid script. If you don't listen to me, I'll make your life even more miserable. What are they whispering about? Is there something we, the loyal viewers, aren't allowed to hear? Is it just me? Or is the vibe between them weird? Feels like they're about to fight. Jackson and I stared each other down for a few seconds. I sighed and looked away, conceding. Ready, go. The second the whistle blew, Jackson threw an arm around my waist and shot forward like an arrow, instantly leaving Ethan and Chloe's fumbling duo in the dust. I struggled to breathe as he dragged me along at high speed, trying to keep up over the obstacles while protesting. Would it kill you to slow down? Slowing down won't kill me, Jackson said coldly, but not getting a good room will. Ha 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 ha. This guy is hilarious. Straight shooter Jackson. Is he an athlete or something? He's running so fast he's practically dragging his teammate. Thanks to his sprint, we were the first to clear the obstacles and reach the edge of a mud pit. What kind of brainless idiot came up with this? Jackson, a mild germaphobe, instantly fell apart, refusing to take another step. I saw his eyes sizing me up and said warily, I can't carry you. Seeing the other teams about to catch up, Jackson gritted his teeth and charged into the mud pit with me. Thick mud splattered everywhere, leaving streaks on both our faces. Jackson's lips were pressed into a thin line, and he looked like he was about to pass out, but his pace didn't slow one bit. It was even harder to keep up with him in the mud. Wait, slow down, I cried out in agony. Jackson kept forging ahead, unfazed. He pulled me off balance, and I tumbled uncontrollably into the mud. The tug sent him stumbling down with me, and we both ended up sitting in the muck. Tim, Wilson, if the soft, filthy mud hadn't distracted him, he probably would have lunged at me. I told you to slow down. I struggled to my feet and held out a hand. Get up. Jackson sat in the mud, propped up on his hands, glaring at me furiously. Get up. They're passing us. Don't you want a good room anymore? I yelled. That last sentence did the trick. Jackson hesitated for a moment, then took my hand and let me pull him up. You just wait. I'll deal with you later, he threatened, then continued to push forward. I was already growing numb to his spoiled, hot-headed tantrums, so I just kept going without a word. By the time we got out of the mud pit, we were far behind the other teams. The last obstacle was a narrow balance beam. The other teams were moving cautiously across it, one foot in front of the other. I could tell from Jackson's clenched jaw that he was about to try something crazy. My heart tightened. Don't do anything rash. But I was too late. A crazed fire lit up in his eyes, his desire for a good room overwhelming his last shred of sanity. With a surge of strength, he scooped me up into a bizarre hold where my left leg was on the ground, still tied to his, and my right leg was dangling in the air. Ha 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 ha. What is this, some kind of ritual?
I'm dying.
This team seems normal on the surface but is just weird through and through. What are you doing? I asked, desperately clinging to his neck, terrified he was going to drop me. Hold on tight, Jackson said, a glint in his eye. He started sprinting toward the balance beam carrying me, and just like that, under the stunned gazes of the other teams and the director, he ran across the entire beam, holding a dazed me, and snatched first place. This is just wild. I did not see that coming. The director's mouth twitched. He probably hadn't expected a contestant like Jackson who refused to play by the rules. Alright, the first team has won the race and gets first pick of the rooms. Jackson didn't hesitate to choose the best room. I tagged along and picked a decent one for myself. On the way to my room, I passed Ethan. He smiled and congratulated us. You guys were amazing.
So fast.
I was flattered that the star actor was talking to me and was about to say something when Jackson impatiently turned his head. Hurry up. I'm dead tired and I need to rest. Before I could figure out what my walking speed had to do with his rest, Ethan just smiled again and went back to his room. Jackson, have you lost your mind? I told you to follow the script, and you go off and do whatever you want. After the day's filming ended, Ms. Brown dragged me to Jackson's room and started laying into both of us. Great. Now the ship is dead in the water, and you've pissed off Ethan. Jackson was leaning against the headboard, playing a game on his phone, completely unfazed. I never wanted to fake a ship anyway, and I don't depend on Ethan for a living, so who cares if he's pissed? Seeing that her anger wasn't working on Jackson, Ms. Brown switched to playing the sympathy card. Do you remember what you said when you first joined the agency? You said you wanted to prove to your dad that you could make it without him. And now, you won't even cooperate with a little marketing push. Those words must have hit home. He stopped playing his game and looked at her thoughtfully. Ms. Brown pressed her advantage. This is a critical time for you to build your reputation. Make a name for yourself, avoid making enemies. Just stick to the script, and I guarantee the show will boost your popularity. And you, Tim. Ms. Brown turned to me. You've been in the background for so long. You finally have a chance, so you need to grab it. You both have talent. You just need an opportunity for people to get to know you and like you. Whether you two become superstars or not depends on your performance this time. She finished, patting us both on the shoulder. The next day, Jackson and I opened our doors at the same time and met in the hallway. I saw a certain determination in his eyes and knew that, like me, he was ready to follow the script. We exchanged a look of understanding and went downstairs together. Morning. Chloe was already in the living room, leaning against the dining table and drinking a glass of milk. The table was laden with a lavish spread of both Chinese and Western-style breakfast dishes. The director said this is our last breakfast, we don't have to make ourselves. Chloe said with a smile, walking over to me. Next meal, we're on our own. With that $100. Everyone gradually gathered and sat down at the table. Jackson sat in a chair near me and took a deep breath. I tightened my grip on my fork, knowing he was about to make his move. Tim. I turned to meet Jackson's gaze. His smile was stiff, and his fingers were trembling. He had a piece of cake on his fork and held it to my mouth. Try some. Is this the same guy who coldly said he'd die if he didn't get a good room? Can someone tell me what's happening right now? A stream of question marks flooded the live chat. A stampede of alpacas ran through my mind. I returned his Parkinson's-like smile and forced myself to lean in and take a bite of the cake. Jackson pulled his fork back, his fingers curling under his sleeve. I wasn't sure if I was imagining it, but his ears seemed to be turning a faint shade of red. Ethan teased from the side. So sweet so early in the morning? Chloe covered her mouth, laughing as she poked his arm. Oh, come on, Ethan. They're from the same agency. Of course they're close, right? I struggled to swallow the cake in my mouth and woodenly continued with the script. I forced a smile at the already miserable-looking Jackson. The cake is sweet, just like you. A guest next to me spat out his orange juice. Jackson and Tim's fake ship. The couple with the least chemistry in entertainment is born. They're so over faking it. The next day, Jackson and I stared at the trending topics on social media in silence. Ms. Brown called, screaming, "Could you two possibly act any faker? Tim, you're an actor for crying out loud. Jackson, don't you need to put emotion into your singing? How did you end up with such a shit performance?" Jackson was already pissed about being forced into the fake ship. Now, being yelled at, his temper exploded. My fault? Have you seen that script? If we actually acted that out, who knows who it would disgust to death. While Ms. Brown and Jackson were in the middle of a heated argument, another voice came through the phone. "Ms. Brown, look at social media. The comments are turning around." I grabbed my phone and opened the app to check the comments section. Is no one else seeing this? Their stiff interactions look just like they're trying to hide something. Like they broke up in private but have to act together for work. And now I ship it even harder. Dude above me, you're not alone. I totally ship them too. They have this kind of broken up couple vibe. I've been shipping them ever since that wall slam video. Best friends turned enemies. A broken mirror that can't be mended. What a grand storyline. I'm all in. Jackson's face is all red. He's so in love. Okay. I stared at the screen, dumbfounded by the fans' wild imagination. Ms. Brown was quiet for a rare moment. When she spoke again, her voice was ecstatic. "This is it. Keep this up. I'm gonna buy you guys trending spots. Hire a water army." She hung up after excitedly outlining our bright future. I glanced awkwardly at Jackson. He had a dazed, surreal look on his face. "So we keep acting?" I asked hesitantly. He seemed lost in thought, and only after a long moment did he give a quiet aha. We were partners now, at least. I couldn't afford to be on bad terms with him. I dredged up the pitifully few social skills I had and tried to make conversation with this notoriously arrogant rich kid. After a moment's thought, I carefully began, "Were you blushing?" Jackson's murderous glare shot over to me. I shrank back, realizing I'd said the wrong thing again. "Which one of your eyes saw me blushing?" He snapped. The fans said it," I muttered, nervously picking at my phone case. Jackson raised his voice. "I was red because you pissed me off." His shouting made my head buzz. Okay, I get it. Just keep it down." Jackson glared at me with impotent rage for a moment. The heavens had been exceptionally generous to him, giving him a face so handsome that he looked charming whether he was laughing, angry, or cursing. Even when he was pouting, it just made him look endearingly childish. I recalled a piece of advice from some social Bible I'd read somewhere. Praise others often to make them feel valued. "You're really handsome," I said sincerely. "Huh?" Jackson's anger froze on his face like a meme. He looked completely caught off guard, his eyes wide and round, like a large dog that had just been unexpectedly petted. Finally, his handsome face flushed a deep red, as if it had been set on fire. I asked humbly, "You're blushing again. Did I say something to offend you? Get out. Tim, get out. Right now." Jackson yelled. His face beat red as he threw a pillow at me. I ducked out of the room, using the pillow to block the door behind me. After that lavish breakfast, all of us guests were forced to fend for ourselves. Ethan naturally took charge of assigning tasks. "We have $100 left. Tim and I will take the money and go into town to buy some ingredients. Chloe and Ben can go to the vegetable garden and pick some produce. Dean and Frank can ask the neighbors if they have any food to spare and collect some eggs. And Jackson, you can go to the creek and see if you can catch any fish." I was secretly pleased that Ethan had asked me to go with him, but that pleasure vanished when I heard Jackson was being sent to catch fish. For a rich kid like Jackson, who had probably never lifted a finger in his life, being asked to catch fish with his bare hands was just plain mean. As expected, Jackson immediately voiced his displeasure. "Why do I have to go catch fish? You haven't given me any tools. How am I supposed to do it? Who is this guy? Why is he throwing a tantrum at Ethan? He's so special. Everyone else is working too." Ethan's usual warm smile faded slightly. "We each have our own tasks. If you don't have tools, you can borrow some. If we want to eat well, everyone has to contribute." Seeing that Jackson was about to clash with him again, I quickly stepped in, tugging on Jackson's sleeve. He shot me an annoyed look but finally stayed quiet. "Ethan, he's never done this kind of work before and doesn't know how. How about this? Let him go into town with you to buy groceries and I'll go catch the fish. No, Jackson shouted immediately. Ethan also shook his head in disapproval. Tim, you don't look like the type who can go fishing. It was true. Most people who met me described me as refined and elegant. Very few knew that the person beneath that exterior had once struggled through mud and mire. I'm not going shopping with him. We'll go fishing together, Jackson said, pointing between me and himself. Since we both agreed to this plan, Ethan couldn't really argue and went to buy groceries by himself. Why did you stick up for me today? Jackson and I were both standing knee-deep in the small creek. Away from the cameras, he asked me in a low voice. I stared blankly into his bright, dark eyes, my rarely used social skills kicking into gear. You're my teammate, Jackson pouted. Only during the first round when we were fighting for rooms. Not anymore. I racked my brain for another reason. We still have to fake our ship, right? Of course I have to help you. For some reason, I felt like Jackson's slightly lifted mood had sunk again. I figured he was unhappy at the thought of having to continue the act and awkwardly tried to comfort him. It's okay. This will all be over soon. Crap, his face looked even darker. Stay away from Ethan from now on. I looked down and met Jackson's gaze in our reflection in the water. Why? He's not a good guy. I've heard things. Just stay away from him, he said, glossing over the reason. I looked at him suspiciously. He said fiercely, Got it? I had no choice but to nod. Got it. Only then did he show a hint of a satisfied smile. How many? You said you caught how many fish? Chloe asked, blinking her big eyes in disbelief. 5. How many times do I have to say it? 5. If you don't believe me, go look for yourself, Jackson replied, then turned his shining eyes to me. He leaned close to my ear and whispered, How did you know how to set a trap? After I used a bamboo basket to fashion a simple trap and caught 5 fish, Jackson started looking at me with a strange kind of reverence. I've done it before, I answered quietly. When Ethan returned and saw the 5 fish, he was also stunned. He probably never expected us to catch anything. Well then, let's start making lunch. Is anyone here a good cook? Anyone who cooks for themselves at home? The guests looked at each other blankly. This was clearly out of their depth. Seeing that no one was speaking up, I hesitantly raised my hand. Ethan's eyes lit up. Great, Tim. You can be my assistant. Jackson popped up. I'm helping too. Do you know how to cook? Ethan looked him up and down. Why the sudden urge to contribute? Jackson suddenly threw an arm around my waist, pulling me closer to him. He tilted his chin at Ethan defiantly. I can't let my Tim be all by himself. Even though it was a line from the script, for some reason, it made my ears burn. Ooh, listen to him, my Tim. The script is so obvious. Hey, it's because the script is so obvious that it's even better to ship. But once we were in the kitchen, that warmth in my ears vanished. Although I hadn't expected much from Jackson, his clumsiness still shocked me. And then there was Ethan. He had acted so confident. I thought he knew what he was doing, but he couldn't even hold a spatula right. I sighed in resignation. Just let me do it. After taking stock of the ingredients and seasonings, I skillfully handled the wok and cooked a meal of 5 dishes and a soup. When the colorful, fragrant food was brought to the table, the guests, and the audience watching the live stream, stared with wide eyes. Chloe swallowed hard. Tim, you have such amazing skills. I wiped my hands and said modestly, It's nothing. Holy crap. This Tim guy must have been a chef before. Drooling RN. Husband. I'm your long-lost wife. Hey now, that's Jackson's husband. You don't stand a chance. Try some, I said, smiling at Jackson beside me, full of anticipation. He picked up his chopsticks, took a bite of the stir-fried bamboo shoots, and his eyes lit up. Delicious. The others immediately abandoned all pretense of politeness and dug in, devouring the food like a swarm of locusts. The entire table of food was wiped clean in no time. Did you secretly take cooking classes behind the agency's back? Jackson, who had single-handedly polished off 3 bowls of rice, didn't go back to his own room to rest after lunch. Instead, he strolled into mine. Maybe it was because we had developed a bit of camaraderie over the past few days, but the tension between us had eased. We could actually have a calm conversation now. No, I said, shaking my head. I've always cooked for myself. Your parents don't help you? Jackson made himself at home, lounging on my sofa and stretching out like a big cat sunning itself. I smiled and looked away. You might not believe this, but my parents passed away when I was young. I was raised by my grandparents. After they passed, it was just me. Jackson's brow furrowed, and he immediately sat up straight. I'm sorry, it's okay, I said, waving it off. Not knowing what else to say, I fell silent. For once, Jackson was also quiet, curled up on the sofa, bathed in a layer of sunlight. The sun made me drowsy, and I closed my eyes without realizing it. In a daze, I felt myself being lifted into the air and struggled to open my eyes. It's okay. Don't be afraid. Just sleep. A voice as light as a feather floated by my ear, lulling my weary nerves. My body sank into a soft bed. I rolled over, wrapped myself in the covers, and fell into a deep sleep. The next day, we ran out of firewood, so the whole group was sent up the mountain to gather more. The sky was gloomy. Although it was nearly noon, there wasn't a trace of sunlight. Gray clouds gathered over the mountainside, signaling an approaching storm. Jackson said to the director, "Looks like it's going to rain, doesn't it? Is it safe to go up the mountain in the rain?" The director confidently puffed out his chest and assured him, "Don't worry, the weather forecast said no rain today." As a result, not 10 minutes after we got on the mountain, huge raindrops started to fall. "You said no rain today," Jackson yelled, exasperated. The director frantically tried to protect his camera equipment. "Damn weather forecast. Said no rain. And you believed it. Let's find a place to take shelter." The group scurried like a pack of monkeys, scrambling toward a cave on the mountainside for cover. I was jostled forward in the crowd. The ground was slick with rain, and I accidentally stepped on a loose patch of dirt at the edge of the path. My whole body went tumbling down the slope. "Tim." My mind went blank for a moment as I fell. My only thought was, is this it? Am I going to die? My fall was broken by a few trees, the pain so intense it was almost numbing. I stared up like a dying soul and saw Jackson's panicked face. The next second, he suddenly shook off the hands of the person next to him and came sliding down after me. I watched him plunge toward me, too weak to stop him. The back of my head hit the ground lightly, and my wrist was grabbed by him as he slid down clumsily. He held onto a tree with one hand and me with the other, stopping me from rolling any further. "Don't you watch where you're going? Do you know how dangerous that was?" he yelled, furious. "Thank you," I said, still shaken. "But it was dangerous for you to jump down after me like that. Don't do it again." My words seemed to choke him up, making him even angrier. "So I'm just supposed to watch you fall? Is that how cold-hearted you think I am?" I wanted to say that we were practically strangers and he didn't need to go that far for me, but looking at his face, a mix of worry and anger, I swallowed the words back down. I sprained my ankle and cut my head. Jackson held me in his arms, half dragging me as we both looked up. We had indeed fallen a long way and landed in a dense thicket. We couldn't see or hear the director and the others at all. "Looks like we're on our own for now," I stated objectively. Jackson's arm was around my waist, and for some reason, the tips of his ears were a little red. "Don't say it like that. Who'd want to be stuck with you?" Jackson and I limped our way into a cave to shelter from the rain. After failing to start a fire by rubbing sticks together, we ended up huddling together under a single jacket, shivering. The sky was already getting dark, and still, no one had found us. Jackson had cursed out the director and the production team countless times. I could barely hear him. Everything felt hazy and distant. Unsurprisingly, from being caught in the rain and with my leg injury, I developed a high fever by nightfall. My brain felt like mush. Jackson was in a panic, holding my shivering body tightly in his arms, using his own body heat to keep me warm. "Tim, hang in there. They'll find us soon," he said, feeling my forehead. He didn't believe it himself, but he kept trying to comfort me. Burning with fever, I was no longer in control of what I was saying. "Jackson, why are you always so cold to me? Why aren't you saying anything?" I lifted my head, trying to see his expression. He avoided my gaze, his voice tinged with resentment. "You have the nerve to ask me? You were the one who was cold to me first. When I first joined the company, I invited you to my birthday party, and you just stared at me with that look. 30% disdain, 30% indifference, and 40% apathy. I racked my feverish brain and couldn't help but feel a mix of amusement and exasperation. Is that why you can't stand me? Is that not a good enough reason? Jackson seemed embarrassed by his own childishness and raised his voice to save face. Actually, that was the first time anyone had ever invited me to anything. I was too nervous to know how to react, I said slowly. I don't have parents, and the other kids didn't want to play with me. I've always been alone, so I never really learned how to interact with people. So it wasn't because you hated me? Jackson was stunned, a shadow passing over his eyes. He then mumbled to himself. I shook my head. It was because I was too nervous. I always get a cold expression when I'm nervous, and I can't seem to change it. He suddenly said, Actually, I didn't mean to be cold to you either. It's just, I've always been afraid of people looking down on me. After you rejected my invitation, I just pretended I didn't care about you at all. Your parents are really strict with you, aren't they? His eyes dimmed for a moment. My dad. He's always thought I couldn't do anything right. I just want to make a name for myself to prove him wrong. Before I could feel sorry for him, he added, Prove to him I'm not some useless trust fund kid who can only go home and inherit the family fortune. What a sweet problem to have. I couldn't help but twitch my lips. After his moment of reflection, Jackson looked at me carefully. So, can we be friends again? I nodded. A brilliant smile instantly bloomed on his face, and he radiated a youthful energy that matched his age. I wanted to smile back, but my body was uncontrollably cold. I buried my head deeper into his neck, my hot breath hitting the skin of his collarbone. His body suddenly stiffened, and his arms around me loosened slightly. Normally, I wouldn't have said anything, but my fever had me feeling disoriented and reckless. I whispered, Hold me tighter. I'm so cold. Jackson remained as stiff as a statue, but the arms around my waist obediently tightened, holding me with a force that was almost painful. I rested my head drowsily in his arms, watching the bright stars in the sky. The rain had finally stopped. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself in a sterile white hospital room. The first thing I saw was Ms. Brown's excited face. She asked how I was doing while frantically calling out, Doctor, come quick. He's finally awake. Before I could even ask about my own condition, I asked, Where's Jackson? How is he? Ms. Brown let out a dramatic sigh. Don't you worry about him. He's perfectly fine. When they found you, he was holding you while you were unconscious, crying his eyes out. He spent a day in the hospital and was back to his usual energetic self. Speak of the devil. Jackson, dressed in a clean tracksuit, ran into the room ahead of the doctor. You're finally awake, he said, his voice full of lingering fear. Doctor, please check him and see if he's okay. The doctor gave me a quick checkup. Everything looks fine. We'll keep you under observation for a few more days, and then you can be discharged. Ms. Brown and Jackson both let out a sigh of relief. After the doctor left, Ms. Brown immediately dropped her professional demeanor, her eyes sparkling. Tim, you two have officially blown up. At those words, Jackson and I involuntarily turned to look at each other, then quickly looked away as if burned by the contact. For some reason, all I could think about was the feeling of being curled up in his arms while I had the fever. I was so used to handling everything on my own, but being held during a moment of vulnerability was a strange and new experience. Look, Ms. Brown's face was beaming as she handed me a phone. I took it and saw our ship name at the top of the trending list, followed by the word exploded. I clicked on it and saw a short video of me slipping and falling, followed by Jackson's face changing drastically as he jumped down after me without a second thought. The comments section was flooded with, My ship is real. Our pairing was now officially endorsed by the entire audience. If we were to announce we were together for real, no one would bat an eye. For some reason, my face felt hot. I watched it once and couldn't bring myself to look again, quickly handing the phone back to Ms. Brown. Ms. Brown was lost in her vision of our bright future. My boys have finally made it. All the hardship paid off. I've already got several new contracts in just a few days. You get some rest. Once you've recovered, you and Jackson will go back and finish filming the show. We're going to milk this for all it's worth. She left the room, practically dancing with joy, leaving Jackson and me to face each other. He was the first to break the silence. You really scared me when you passed out like that. Ms. Brown said you were crying your eyes out. Jackson said defensively, We're friends now. Can't I worry about my friend? A warm feeling spread through my chest, and I smiled and nodded. Are we going to stick to the script when we go back? I asked. A suspicious blush crept up his face. Of course. You don't want to? I lowered my head, not daring to meet his eyes, and said in a low voice, I didn't say I didn't want to. When Jackson and I returned to the show's set, the live chat was as festive as New Year's Eve. My husband and my other husband are finally back. Tim is real. Let me tell the world about the treasure that is Tim Wilson. His role as the second male lead prince in the web series Dream River of Snow was incredible. Amazing acting. The epitome of a refined gentleman. Don't miss out on our Jackson. His songs are amazing. Handsome guy. Beautiful voice. Welcome back. The other guests applauded for us. Chloe came over and gave me a sympathetic hug, her eyes shining. Tim, you had me so worried. I missed you so much. Another guest laughingly exposed her. You just missed his cooking, didn't you? Chloe stuck out her tongue playfully. I mostly missed my handsome Tim. Missing his food was just a bonus. I had never been the subject of such warm conversation in my life and instinctively looked to Jackson for help. He saw my discomfort immediately, walked over, and casually put an arm around me, taking over the conversation. Our Tim just got out of the hospital, so don't you guys think about making him cook? Ooh, our Tim. So sweet I could die. Quick question. Did they reignite their flame after Tim got hurt? The atmosphere between them feels different. Don't talk nonsense. When did the flame of our Tim ever go out? Ethan also stepped forward, giving me a warm smile. Are you feeling better, Tim? Welcome back. I'm all better. Thanks for your concern, Ethan, and thanks, everyone. After I came back, they absolutely refused to let the recovering patient cook anymore. I would have preferred to cook rather than be forced to eat the slop they made every day. After a few days of this, I looked pale and felt like I was on the verge of getting sick again. After the fall, both Jackson and I had inexplicably risen in status. The director, seeing the screen full of comments demanding he feed me something good to help me recover, decided to throw us a lavish dinner party. The celebrities, who were used to being served hand and foot, had suffered greatly. When they saw the food, their eyes went wide, and they all started stuffing their faces without a care for their image. Of course, no one could compete with Jackson in full-on battle mode. He darted around, piling my plate high with food. That's enough, I said, exasperated. He glared at me. You just recovered. You need to eat more. In the end, everyone was too full to move, lounging lazily in the courtyard chairs, enjoying the breeze. Should we play a game? One of the guests suggested. What game? A mischievous smile crossed his face. Truth or dare? You in? The live chat exploded. A group of celebrities playing truth or dare could easily lead to some juicy revelations. Chloe, who usually seemed sweet and quiet, was the first to run inside to grab beers, her face full of excitement. Whoever the bottle points to has to choose truth or dare. If you can't do it, you have to chug a beer. How about it? Seeing that we all agreed, Chloe excitedly spun the bottle. After a few rounds, the questions and dares got progressively wilder. Who's prettier between two award-winning actresses? When was your last kiss? What was it like filming a kiss scene with so-and-so? So when the bottle stopped again, pointing at me, I felt a sense of impending doom. Who knew what kind of torturous dare this shameless group would come up with? After much thought, I chose truth. It was Chloe's turn to ask, and her question was relatively mild. Is there anyone you have a crush on right now? Compared to the previous questions, this was barely a question at all. But for some reason, I couldn't answer. The word no got stuck in my throat. I snuck a glance at Jackson. He was leaning back in his chair, holding a beer, watching me quietly. I clenched my fists, trying to make my voice sound as casual as possible. Yes. The live chat went crazy again, but I didn't dare to look. After speaking, I shrank back into my seat like a quail. Only one question per turn. The guests reluctantly turned their gossipy gazes away and watched the bottle spin again. As luck would have it, this time the bottle pointed to Jackson. Dare, he said, becoming the first person tonight to choose dare. Chloe's eyes twinkled, and she broke into a wide grin. Okay, how about this? You give Tim a kiss. On the cheek is fine. Ah. Mom. Chloe. From this day on, you are my real mom. Why does it feel like she ships them harder than we do? My mind went blank. I stared at Jackson, stunned. He was stunned for a moment too. Then his face went up in flames, his ears looking like they were about to bleed. Come on, you're not scared, are you? Chloe, still smarting from her own truth question, was now determined to stir up trouble, following the principle of if I'm getting rained on, I'm tearing up your umbrella. Jackson, have you never been in a relationship? Jackson stuck his neck out and said loudly, of course I have. Lots of them. LMAO, he's all talk. He so obviously looks like a shy virgin pretending to be experienced. Who is he fooling? He steeled himself and slowly leaned his face toward mine. I lowered my eyelashes, watching his thick lashes, now just inches away, tremble. Everyone held their breath, their eyes wide as they watched his lips get closer and closer to me. A kiss as light as a feather brushed against my cheek, so light it could barely be called a kiss. Before I could even react, Jackson dropped his beer bottle and fled. What game? It's so late. Time for bed. After the cameras were off and everyone had dispersed, I was still sitting dumbly in the courtyard chair, waiting for the heat in my face to subside. It's always when you want peace and quiet that someone decides to bother you. I had only been sitting for a short while when a voice came from behind me. Tim, why aren't you in bed yet? It's so late. It was Ethan, wearing a robe, who came out and sat down next to me. My feelings toward him were complicated. I still had a deep-seated admiration for him that was hard to shake. But I was also wary because Jackson had warned me he wasn't a good person. Not sleepy yet. Why are you still up, Ethan? He smiled without answering and started talking about my career plans. I had to admit, as a top actor, he was incredibly knowledgeable. His advice was very helpful, and I let go of my reservations and started talking with him. I see you have a lot of potential. You have the looks, and your acting is good. A young man like you needs to think long-term, pave the way for your future. I nodded seriously, but then he suddenly changed the subject. Are you and that kid Jackson really together? I hadn't expected him to be so direct. I was stunned for a moment, then quickly waved my hands. No, we're just ordinary friends. Ethan laughed. He was handsome, and his smile was even more charming. But his smile right now made me very uncomfortable. So you like him? I bit my lip and said nothing. Tim, he said meaningfully, think about what I said. You need to consider your future. You're better off with me than with him. I was so shocked I couldn't speak. Before I could respond, a figure walked past the door into the house, bumping his shoulder against the frame with a thud. Ethan and I both turned, but neither of us got a clear look at who it was. Think about what I said. Ethan stood up and gave me a blatant once-over, his eyes lingering on my lips for a long time. He reached out to pat my shoulder, but I subtly dodged it. He didn't seem to mind. He retracted his hand, smiled, and went inside. I went back to my own room, wrapped myself in the covers, and lay awake all night. From that day on, Jackson started avoiding me. He stopped doing the intimate gestures written in the script. When the cameras were rolling, he only said what was absolutely necessary to me and kept his distance otherwise. Anyone could see that the atmosphere between us was off, but no one dared to say anything. I had gotten so used to Jackson's gentler side that I had almost forgotten what a difficult person he could be. I wasn't good at communication, and we had only just broken the ice. When he started avoiding me, I was even more at a loss. During a team game, we were put on the same team again. The task was to find hidden keys in the area. The other teams were laughing and talking, but the two of us just searched in silence, not exchanging a single word. After bending over to search for a while, I stood up. I felt a little dizzy from getting up too quickly and instinctively reached out to steady myself on Jackson. But he silently moved away, leaving my hand hanging in midair. The live chat was filled with cries of anguish. What's going on? Did they have a falling out? This is so weird. You should have helped him. Did my ship just sink? They haven't spoken to each other at all these past few days. On the other hand, Ethan seems to be trying to talk to Tim. That evening, while I was cooking, Jackson was my assistant, still absent-minded. Hand me the knife, I said, holding out my hand. He picked up the kitchen knife and handed it to me. I don't know what he was thinking, but he handed it to me blade first. I was busy with the vegetables and didn't look up. I reached out to take it, and the sharp blade sliced across my palm, leaving a frightening gash. The moment the blood gushed out, both of us froze. Jackson, what are you standing there for? Ethan yelled, rushing over and pulling me away. You cut him. Director, get the first aid kit. I held up my hand, which was trembling slightly from the sharp pain. Tim, Jackson seemed to snap out of a daze and tried to take my hand, his face filled with alarm. I pulled my hand away and, with the help of Ethan and the others, sat down on the sofa outside. Ethan disinfected and bandaged my hand. Jackson stood outside the circle of people, watching me silently, looking strangely pitiful. I'm fine. You don't all have to crowd around me. I just need to rest for a bit. After finally shooing everyone away to do their own thing, only Ethan and Jackson remained with me. The cameraman tactfully moved away to film someone else. Ethan, you can go back to what you were doing. I need to have a word with Jackson. Ethan squeezed my shoulder. Call me if you need anything. He shot a provocative look at Jackson, then turned and left. Jackson's gaze lingered on my shoulder for a moment, his expression gloomy. Why have you been avoiding me these past few days? Who's been avoiding you? He said, looking away irritably. I couldn't help but laugh, though it was a bitter one. You weren't avoiding me? Is that why you handed me a knife blade first? If I had been standing next to you, would you have just stabbed me? Jackson hung his head in frustration. The more I spoke, the angrier and more wronged I felt. All the things I had been bottling up and forcing myself to digest these past few days came rushing out. Can you stop being so childish? The word childish clearly hit a nerve. He snapped his head up, his face red with anger, and lashed out, Yeah, I'm childish. And you're so mature, right? Have you been spending all your time lately thinking about how to kick me to the curb so you can get with Ethan? What did you say? My face went pale. That person we saw that night, that was you, wasn't it? It was me. So what? He raised his voice in anger. Are you playing me for a fool, Tim? Faking a ship with me 1 minute and then throwing yourself at Ethan the next? Jackson was about to say something else in his emotional state, but when he looked at me, he suddenly fell silent. Tim, he said, starting to panic. He tried to wipe my face with his hand, but I dodged it. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. I was just so angry, don't cry. I was wrong. Is that the kind of person you think I am? Someone who would do anything to climb to the top? An indescribable sense of injustice washed over me. I didn't know if I was angry at myself or at him. Thought we were friends. We are, of course we are. Jackson knelt in front of me and took my hand, looking up at me pleadingly. His eyes were so bright, like two shining stars in the dark night. Jackson, I said, trying to calm myself down. I can't keep acting out this script with you anymore. Without giving him time to question me, I pulled my hand away and went upstairs. After the day's filming was over, I wandered around the village alone under the cover of night. I hadn't been walking for long when Ethan caught up from behind, reaching out to put his arm around my waist. The show is almost over. Is there anything you want to say to me? I dodged him. Ethan, I can't accept your offer. Ethan's confident smile froze on his face. Are you rejecting me? I want to make it on my own. I'm grateful for your offer of help, but I can't accept. You're not the person I like. He was still smiling, but it was a sinister smile now. On your own? Aren't you just relying on faking a ship with Jackson right now? Don't tell me you actually like that childish brat. You're just after his family's influence, aren't you? My voice turned cold. Watch your words, Ethan. Don't talk nonsense. Do you think I'm negotiating with you? Ethan closed in, grabbing my wrist. If I want to play with someone like you, it's as easy as crushing an ant. What bargaining power do you have? Let go of me. I frowned and struggled, resisting the urge to kick him. But he only got closer, his hand starting to slide down my body inappropriately. I couldn't take it anymore. I raised my leg to kick him, but someone beat me to it, sending Ethan flying into a bush by the side of the road with a single kick. Jackson's face was like ice. I told you he was no good. I stared at my knight in shining armor, my brain short-circuiting as I latched onto the wrong detail. Were you following me? His eyes widened. If I hadn't followed you, he would have been all over you. Ethan scrambled up from the ground, his eyes malicious. You dare to hit me? You don't want to work in this industry anymore? He shouldn't have said anything. The moment he did, Jackson landed another punch on his face, knocking him to the ground again. Fuck you. You think you can threaten me? If you've done your research, you should know you can't afford to mess with me. Ethan clutched his face, glaring at us both with hatred. The next time you see Tim, you better walk the other way. Otherwise, I wouldn't mind making some trouble for you, Jackson said coldly, cracking his knuckles. You just wait, Ethan spat out before scrambling away. Jackson turned to look at me, all his previous ferocity gone, replaced by an awkward expression. So, the person you like isn't Ethan? I was speechless for a moment. Why would you think that? His mood visibly dropped, and he looked like a puppy caught in a storm, blinking his bright eyes. That night during Truth or Dare, you said you had a crush on someone. Then later that night, I heard Ethan say those things too. I thought you too. That's not what happened, I said, exasperated. Didn't you warn me to stay away from him? But you said you didn't want to act out the script with me anymore. Jackson looked at me, his face full of hurt, making me want to reach out and ruffle his hair. I really don't want to act with you anymore. He clenched his fists, his eyelashes trembling, looking as if he'd been struck by lightning. I want to ask you a few questions. Go ahead, he said, looking at me intently. First, why did you follow me tonight? Second, you hated acting out that script before, so why do you want to continue now? And third, why were you so unhappy when you misunderstood my relationship with Ethan? I wasn't eloquent, but my logic was clear. And all these questions pointed to one answer. An answer I desperately hoped for but didn't dare to expect. Maybe he felt the same way I did. Jackson stared at me, stumbling over his words, his cheeks flushing red. Finally, as if throwing all caution to the wind, he squeezed his eyes shut, gritted his teeth, and blurted out, why else? Because I like you. You idiot. He delivered the confession like he was picking a fight. Classic Jackson. So what about you? He looked at me, his eyes full of hope. His face was completely red, and his hands were trembling, but he kept his gaze fixed on mine, as if he would die for my answer. His intense, burning gaze made my cheeks burn. That night, when I said I had a crush on someone, I wasn't acting. Jackson's eyes grew brighter and brighter. If he had a tail, it would be wagging furiously right now. But that person wasn't Ethan. I looked up and met his gaze intently. It was you. That's why I can't act out the script with you anymore. I want to write our own script together. A person with no social skills can only be direct, but it seemed to work pretty well. The words had barely left my mouth when Jackson threw himself into my arms. So, will you be with me, please? He asked eagerly. I hugged him back tightly, my throat constricting. Yes. 3 years later, a house in the suburbs. I had just wrapped up a scene and returned home, dragging my suitcase behind me. The moment I pushed the door open, someone grabbed me by the wrist and pinned me against the wall. This is a stick-up. Don't move. A low, sexy voice whispered in my ear. Are you after my money or my body? I laughed, letting him have his way with me. Jackson stared at me with the eyes of a predator. I want both. He switched seamlessly from cold and domineering to pitiful and whiny. He leaned his whole body against me and started murmuring. You were gone for so long, leaving me all alone in this big empty house. Didn't you miss me at all? But you visited the set more times than the entire crew combined. I don't care. I need to collect some interest, he said. And then a hot, intense kiss fell on my lips, stealing all my breath. After ravaging my lips, he moved to my collarbone, nibbling and whining at the same time. Honey, do you not love me anymore? He was rubbing my palm with his, gently licking and biting my Adam's apple. I was clearly the one being bullied, yet the perpetrator was putting on an innocent, victimized act. Hiss, be gentle, the interest collection session moved from the wall to the bed. When I came to my senses again, the sky had already turned dark. I tried to get out of bed, but my legs gave out, and I almost fell to the floor. I walked out of the bedroom and saw Jackson in the kitchen. His head bowed as he stirred a pot of soup. After being together for so long, he had finally honed some cooking skills and took endless pleasure in feeding me. I walked over and wrapped my arms around his waist from behind. You're awake? He said, squeezing my hands. I nodded. Is your new song coming out soon? Of course. I wrote the lyrics and music myself. He turned around to hug me from the front, getting clingy again and trying to kiss my lips. It's a gift for our 3rd anniversary. 3 years. I had become a promising, respected actor, and he was making steady progress on his path as a singer. The two of us, who once had to rely on a fake romance to support each other, had both moved on to the next stage of our lives. That night, things got heated. In a haze of passion, I looked at him dreamily. I love you. His eyes darkened, his pace quickened, and he drew a broken gasp from me. I love you too. A sliver of moonlight shone through the gap in the curtains. Two people in love, wrapped in each other's arms, slept peacefully. Our script is one we'll keep writing together.